What is up, everybody? Welcome to the show. This is On Program, your favorite place in the galaxy to hang out with 3 or more people and discuss whatever happened in Star Wars. You might have liked the cold open, but you don't get it this week. You don't get it this week. You get the structured, same old crap. And here we are. Same bad station, same bad channel. 3 great people. Here we are. We got Taylor B, we got Michael B, and I B here as well. Let's get into it. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, no, like in improv, they have this this thing called yes and, where you kind of keep the joke going no matter what it is. Michael's like a "you suck" type of improv partner. He just stands there and watches you drown. That's the strategy there. Let's get into it now that I've successfully bubbled. The Acolyte dropped a trailer. We got some cool stuff we can talk about as far as that goes. We got a new episode of Bad Batch, and Taylor was letting me know before the show we just went live here that Star Wars released a whole bunch of stuff. I guess they did their Empire State Building takeover with Hayden Christensen, and I was just kind of like, I don't know what that's about, but sometimes they do fun light shows and whatever, so I just kind of let it go. But apparently they've done a whole lot of merch. So Taylor, why don't you just give us the headline news, give us the breakdown there, and let me know what you've seen.
Yeah, so apparently at the end of March, Lucasfilm has announced that we will be celebrating Imperial March for a month leading up to May 4th. So I guess it's going through the end of March, the end of March into the end of April. The Empire State Building light show was part of that, but they've also released a ton of merch. The blue milk that's been announced that's coming to grocery stores in April is also part of this. So some Star Wars jewelry, some collectibles, some
they have
apparel
green
and
milk
hats.
for fans of The Last Jedi, or just blue?
Those exist?
I'll ask me.
Sorry, Ed. Yeah, but all that's like, I just found an article on StarWars.com that gives a pretty exhaustive list of what they've released for this event.
Nice. Yeah, we'll have to link it in the Discord. For those of you not on Discord, you should get on Discord. It's where we engage in Discord. It's great. It's a lot of fun. Links, memes, the whole 9. All right. So that was fun. That was a fun little news dump. We appreciate that. Michael, what the heck, man? We got a lot to dive into here. We got High Republic. You and I have been waving the banner that these books are actually pretty solid, and they're worth everybody's time. Whether it was during the Jedi Survivor game, or just kind of hoping that this show would turn out to be good. But we got some pretty good payoff there. It looks like this is going to be at the end of this one. What'd you think of the trailer before we get into Bad Batch?
Yeah, I think it is gratifying to see the payout there. Obviously, there's been comics, there's been the Young Jedi Adventures has taken place during the same time period. Now we're on phase 3 of the High Republic series, and then this story takes place about 130 years after the book series, and about 100 years directly before Episode 1. And it's really cool to see. I'm glad they have Vernesta Rowe in there. It was really cool to see at least one character that we'll recognize. I don't know if they had previously established that her species was so long-lived, but she's one of the super common species there too, Myrions, yeah. So they're not like 400 years. She's still going to be pretty old, but I think 200 to 300 years is normal age for them, so that's cool. But yeah, for the trailer, it's really cool to see. I think it's interesting to see their clothing, the Jedi clothing, look much closer to Episode 1 attire than High Republic. So they've established this is sort of the end of the High Republic era. So their clothes are a little bit less decorative, a little bit more subdued, more monkish. And I'm interested to see how this aligns with the new book that's coming out. I think it's called The Jedi Masters or something like that. That's set a year before Episode 1. I'm interested to see the progression of the Jedi and their sort of mentality and stances from the High Republic that now we have canon all the way through, getting closer and closer to connecting those dots through where we see them. Um, I'm
You're
also
talking
really
about
curious.
the John Jackson Miller book, right? The
Maybe.
Light of the Force, Living Force, or something like
Yeah,
that. I
there's a
can't
new one.
remember
It's
what it.
it's coming out
Yeah,
soon, I think. Yeah.
yeah. It looks interesting for sure.
I'm also interested. I was talking with somebody else about the sort of throwaway line that we don't talk about a lot in episode 1 when Windu says maybe we should inform the chancellor that our powers are diminished. And I'm curious if we will see the Jedi being more powerful than we have thus far seen them justifiably, or if that had some sort of other symbolic meaning or something. But I'd be interested to see if the Jedi were potentially just more powerful in the past and they had to a certain point lost a lot of that for various reasons, especially with the influence of the Sith coming back. So it'll be cool. Be cool to see where they walk this line with not being a Sith too.
Well, I mean, maybe, right? Like that red lightsaber at the end of the trailer. I mean, it
Well, that
was
doesn't mean
very.
Sith. It's a bled lightsaber, right? Anybody can technically do that at this point. And we've already
That's
have canon High Republic Jedi who have gone to the dark side and bled their lightsabers. We've already seen that. So it doesn't necessarily mean Sith. I would really like to hold on for obvious canon reasons to Sith haven't been seen in 1,000 generations. But
aha.
you know how they do. What's a
No, but
generation in
here's
Star
the
Wars land
thing.
anyway?
I'm surprised because I know I was hoping Taylor would bring that point up so that way I could pivot to you and ask you why I am not bothered by it.
I mean,
Because
obviously
you're the
The Sith can be have been and can be in around and doing things and kill any Jedi they find. There's all sorts of reasonable explanations for why the Sith are definitely still around and just haven't been seen. But I would really like them not to be so front and center if that's what this is going to do. Just my opinion. It's kind of like us
no,
not
I
wanting to be and have force powers. I would really like to see just dark Jedi or to see Jedi that have just either fallen away or just non Jedi people who aren't even related to the Jedi and just have force powers and use them for gray to dark purposes.
what what I would really like to see, and this is kind of where I'm a little surprised, but I'll bring it up and you can tell me your thoughts having read the High Republic books, right? Um, Taylor, for your edification, in the High
Hmm.
Republic, there's this pirate group. Think of like this sort of anarcho sort of I don't even know what their ideology is, like hyper individualistic, nihilistic. They're called the Nile, right? So they have this sort of band of pirates that's ruthless, and they are fighting the Jedi and the larger galaxy. And one of the main weapons they have are these monstrous creatures called the Nameless.
Okay.
And what they do is they cause Jedi to go insane and fear for their lives so much that they eventually turn to dust, physically. So it's a
Interesting.
very,
So they're
very
force
interesting
eaters.
thing.
They
Correct.
they consume the force. They track people based on the force, and they consume the force to a degree where, especially during the High Republic, the Jedi are so reliant on the force that when they just even just like within a football field of one of these things, they completely break down. The Jet like every all the best of the Jedi just completely lose it.
So
They
Hmm.
emotionally and physically they can't do anything.
So by the end of this, like the thing about us as a panel right now is we collectively make one complete Star Wars fan because we've all read different things, right? So, Taylor, the way I would describe the first part of their powers, the mental part, is like how
Hmm.
Darth Zana in the Bane books uses the Sith sorcery and the Sith magic to like mess with people's minds, right? That
Hmm.
is sort of the fear and terror that is inflicted on these Jedi, and then of course by the end it manifests physically as well. They turn to ash, and it's brutal and it's horrifying. So the way the High Republic books came out was they started at X date. I can't remember what it was, 200 or 300 years before Phantom Menace. They did a phase, and then they went back 100 years to do a prequel phase, right? And in that
Okay.
prequel phase, so you figure you're about 300 years now before
Appropriate Star Wars
Phantom
format.
Menace. Correct, right? It's not normal if it's not jumbled, right? But At any rate, they go back and they find out about these creatures. These creatures are playing a very prominent role
Okay.
in these conflicts. A lot of Jedi die, but some Jedi survive and they learn about it. I can't remember. I think it was Master Crichton's son, Michael, if I'm not mistaken. Who's the one who survives? There's a master that survives and talks to Yoda. I think Crichton's son, unless Crichton's son
Sounds like
dies.
Creighton. Yeah.
All right,
Yeah,
so I
well,
think
so
either way,
Yaddle and Yoda are both aware, but they 100 years
Yaddle,
before the
Yoda.
event of
Mhm.
the first sort of the great hyperspace disaster,
Hmm.
100 years before they sort of encounter these things and they choose to hide it. The Jedi are like, "Hey, this is pretty bad, and if we start telling them about it, they're going to doubt the Jedi. The Jedi are going to start leaving and not want to do anything." And so they're like, "Hey, let's keep this secret," which, doesn't show a great
Interesting.
track record for Yoda.
And so that's what
Sounds
was
right.
interesting to me, and what's relevant here is
Hmm.
you have this sort of track record of the Jedi Council with this moment, and then also the Attack of the Clones conversation that Michael mentioned earlier about, hey, there's a problem here. We should just swallow it and keep it hidden, right? Star Wars
Hmm.
Explained pointed out that the Jedi Temple is literally built on a Sith shrine, right? Like that's kind of their MO is just kind of hide it and move on. And so as relates to potential Sith interactions, I would not be surprised at all if they kind of do a Darth Maul thing here, where either they kill the apprentice, and
Hmm.
then the show goes into finding their master, right? Or
Right.
finding that master, finding a new apprentice, or they then basically just be like, "Yeah, we got him. Oh, we killed them all," type deal. This should stay quiet, and it's like Vernestra Rowe and Yoda, and then Yoda keeps that secret, and then he just kind of plays along when Kiadi Mundi's like, "You're insane. They've been dead for a millennium."
Yeah. It's
Thoughts?
interesting a little bit because I feel like, uh, right, the earliest I've seen, because I haven't read any of the High Republic books. The earliest I've seen has been like when they figure out Darth Maul's there, and then they're like, could he be a Sith? No, they haven't been seen him forever. But I feel like the Jedi at that point seemed like they didn't question it too much. And I don't know if that's just because Darth Maul had been seen by a lot of people in well, at least in the Republic. And on Naboo, it was sort of part of the war. So there were like a fair amount of people who had seen him and they felt like they couldn't deny his existence. Or maybe it would be
Hmm.
interesting if, depending on what they do in the show and what they've hidden in the past, that they're like, well, we saw these other people in the past and we kept quiet about it. Now we see this other guy.
Yeah, it's kind of
So
like a chickens
let's
come home to
finally
roost type
say something.
situation. Yeah, yeah. We saw something 100 years ago. We saw something another 100
Hmm.
years ago. We saw something now. We should say something. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
And that's the point. Is like I've seen a lot of discourse online where we won't get into the worst discourse online, right? I'm sure everybody can imagine how I feel about all that. But I've seen some discourse online of like, oh, just what we need, another show critical of the Jedi, right? And I'm like, hey, the good guys managed to lose a 10,000 to 2 advantage, right? Like there has to be some kind of explanation for how they blow that lead, like that's
Yeah.
that, that's
Well,
wild.
and I mean,
And go ahead.
sorry, I was just thinking, like, right, we see a lot of arrogance from the Jedi Council in the prequel movies. So
Mhm.
I always thought it was sort of interesting that they accepted the fact that Darth Maul could be a Sith that quickly and that they
Mhm.
could have just popped back up. So yeah, I'm curious, like I said, again, not having read the books, but I'm curious how this history might then
Yeah,
inform or
it
provide
almost
some more
makes sense.
context to
'Cause you'd
what we've
you'd
seen.
almost expect some of the Jedi to be a lot more like Cornelius Fudge in the, Harry Potter books, right? Like, you'd expect
Yeah.
to be like,
Mhm.
"No, he's not back. Piss off. Get out of here. We killed those guys. Read a book.
Yeah.
Rusan. Michael, read this book. It's about Rusan.
Well,
Darth Bane."
especially if they're hiding other things like these, what you said, nameless?
Yeah,
So
nailed
especially
it.
if they're hiding other creatures because they don't want people to question the Jedi, it seems like all of a sudden coming out and being like, "Oh, the Sith are back." Granted, again, not that the average Republic citizen would know what that means, um, because they had been, considered to be extinct for so long. But yeah, I think it's a very interesting
Or
attitude.
even the
Also,
average Jedi. I mean, like
yeah,
that's kind of the
true.
point of what I'm saying is that like these two guys or three or however many it was
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the prequel series, they knew and they did not share that secret. Like Yoda just sat
Right.
on it. So, yeah,
Also, they
very
sound like the Voxen too. They remind me of. Do you remember those from the Yuzong Vong books? That could like track the
ve-
Jedi through their use of the
yeah,
Force.
yeah. It's pretty wild. It's kind of fun. They're a little different, I think, but because they seem to have like this very I don't know why, but they haven't really ironed it out yet, unless they have in the books that I haven't read, because I'm a little behind. But they're very dark side driven. It appears they
I
don't
just
seem
saw the
to really
picture
do
you
much
posted.
about the.
It's
Maybe
but
I'm
it's not
mistaken,
actually
Michael.
dark side. They're really not. They are anti-force. They are
Oh.
completely devoid of
Voxen.
force. And I have a feeling were they to interact with or encounter a dark side force user, they would not discriminate whatsoever.
So they're like the
Again,
Christopher Hitchens of the Star Wars universe, just out there, just like.
And in fact, actually, I think one of the last books of the second phase of High Republic, they do in fact have a situation where they're not really easy to control. Yeah, there's a whole thing. But they've also clearly been around for a long time, because there's this whole subplot with the Rod of Seasons and the Rod of Daybreak or whatever, and these can control them for some whatever reason, and whoever has these can control them. So
interesting.
like they're an ancient enemy even by the time of they're sort of rediscovered. And so I don't know. I do like the idea of Yoda just like you've got like Ki-Adi-Mundi and Mace Windu over here being like the Sith, ridiculous, whatever, and Yoda's over here like,
It's like, yeah, no,
maybe
that's
listen to
what a
Qui-Gon, you should.
crazy development, guys. Yeah, that'd be
Yeah.
wild. Maybe we should hear the guy out though. I think it's crazy too. But just
I
man, let's
mean,
just hear him
Yoda
out,
knew the rule of two. How did he know the
right?
rule of two if he hadn't encountered Bane and or the writings of the Sith that he would have to
Mm-hmm.
know have been around in the last 1,000 years? Speaking
That
of, question for you guys. Not that it. Never mind. Legends wise, which Sith were around or what was going on 100 years before Episode 1?
I'm glad you asked. So here's what another side
It's
of
not
the internet
Plagueis
was
yet,
starting
right?
to have a lot of fun, right? So it could technically be Plagueis. He'd be on the younger side.
Yeah,
Mutants
Mm-hmm.
because
live
he's
quite a
mutants. They're
bit.
pretty old. Yeah.
And his master was Darth Tenebris, who is a Bith who can live as long as we want him to. Either of
Didn't they
these
also
species could.
have? Didn't he have a second Padawan who was also a Bith?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah,
And then
at
so
least
so
in
the
Legends.
correct. And first and foremost, all of that could change. I really hope they keep Plagueis immune just, for fun. I
Yeah,
like it. I think it
Mm-hmm.
looks
it's
cool.
cool. It's weird.
But they could do something different. I don't know. But at the end of the day, yeah, it's very unlikely, very, very, very unlikely that it would be young Sheev, messing
Oh no, it's
around
Mm-hmm.
too
killing people.
Yeah.
no,
But
because
yeah, it
we
could be
we already know
Plagueis.
his
I would
age.
say, I would have said that Tenebris was like, there's no shot that he's involved. They could just make up whatever new master, but they did have the Sith troopers in Rise of Skywalker have a legion called Tenebris, which is at least some kind of connection, saying that, well, hey Christian, how you doing, man? Welcome to the chat. Nice to see you out there in the wide world. Yeah. So anyway, it could. That's the connection to canon that's giving me more faith, I guess, that there's a chance that it actually shows up instead of they just wipe the slate clean. Will he be a Bith? I doubt it. I really doubt it.
Now, Teneris has not yet been recanonized, as far as I know.
The name has, is what I'm saying.
Okay,
Yeah.
the name has. Okay.
Yeah, and
Cool.
I mean, I think it would just be kind of odd to canonize that name if it's not in the same space. That seems spiteful,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
but maybe not.
So then, do we think that it's hard to tell what's going on, and maybe there have been some better writings from the the directors or writers, showrunners, and things like that I have missed. But all we've seen thus far is this woman who is some sort of assassin, and she's trying to kill
I'll
Jedi.
pull it
That's
up.
pretty clear from the trailer. But I don't know. Do we actually see her using the Force, or do we see the Force being used um, by
Where is
some
it?
unknown person, and just sort of are we just sort of led to believe that it's her?
So it's very ambiguous right now, but the person you're
Yeah.
talking about is May. That's the
Oh, yeah.
Amandla Stenberg. You know, people are saying there's like flashbacks. She's probably one of
Mhm.
the ones on the, in the temple there.
You think
This
she's a
looks like
Jedi,
Octo
former Jedi?
quite a bit.
Does look like Octo. Wow.
So that could be very interesting. Again, if they just forgot all about
Really
Octo in
far away.
100 years,
Well, I mean,
could be a whole thing.
yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, it could have been long abandoned before that point, because Octo was a Jedi temple at some point a long, long time ago. A long, long,
It's
long time
true.
ago.
Well,
But
also,
it could have been discovered by the Sith or some other group of people studying Jedi texts and things hundreds of years ago, and the Jedi have just again lost it because it's in the unknown regions.
and also, this is the girl we saw going up against a Jedi with a knife, which I've already
That's right.
talked with you two a little bit about how when I see someone going up against a Jedi with a knife, I'm like, I don't know if that was your wisest choice. But I feel
Unless she
like
is
just
also
from
a
the
Jedi, would that
Unless
level it
she's
or
all
no?
Jedi or has a nameless around or something like that, you know.
well,
Okay.
but from the little bits of the fight we've seen, regardless of what she is, I think she has some of the Force. Otherwise, I don't think she could fight and seem to be holding her own against the Jedi.
This is
I think
cool.
you're right.
What species is Jackie here? Or Jackie? I can't read it.
Jackie. I think it's Jackie. I can't really read it either.
Like
I
Jakku?
think she's a
Jackie?
I think she's a
Jackie?
Thelan though, if I'm not mistaken, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
She's kind of looking like a
Yeah,
Thelan,
she does
which
look like that's
the
always cool.
New Rockstars was pointing out that Thelan were mentioned in the High Republic. I was like, bro, like I love you. You're amazing. I'm not talking anything about New Rockstars, but Thelan have been around for a minute, like since the beginning. Like Thelan
Yeah, but you know what though?
been
It
around.
has High Republic has been having an interesting situation of sort of changing a lot of the canon around which planets have been part of the or part of the Republic, and which planets are relatively new versus old planets. Because you would think
It's
that
true.
a lot of the planets that are really important are all in the core, but I think I was just talking with Taylor about how like
Mm-hmm.
Iriadu is an um, 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 outer rim
Rim.
planet, even though it's a
Well,
huge hub. But there's a lot of these planets that we are really, really familiar with that are like very outer rim planets, and yet there's
Yeah.
others that within the last couple hundred years are just being discovered. I think a main plot point of the High Republic's first phase was like the Togruta homeworld was being sort of
yeah.
annexed or being brought in, and yet their planet is no real further out than some of these other ones as far as the current galactic map goes. So it's just interesting
Mm-hmm.
to see
It
Naboo.
is, and I also think it's very short-sighted. Like I hear people when they talk about how KOTOR is like way too stagnant, like the technology is
Mhm.
the exact same, and that's really odd. I get that; it makes a lot of sense. But I also think Lucasfilm is definitely painting themselves into a corner unless they're really careful, because I can already see 2 years from now when they finally do the Revan thing or whatever, whatever it
Mm.
is, and then they spend a lot of time on Tatooine, and it's like, I mean, there's
Well,
explanations,
one
but
way they can get
still.
past this is if they take all of these major, massive galactic scale conflicts that we're aware of that happen in history, and they run them to ground. And so, in the last 25,000 years of the Jedi being around, you had a pretty large portion of that was the Sith Empire, right? Or there's a pretty big section where the Sith ruled everything, and so even if the planets had been discovered at some point, they could have been basically wiped off the known maps, and there could be a lot of basically loss of knowledge, as we've seen in Star Wars already, where things have to get rediscovered. But yeah, there's also some changes. Like I think it was the same Plagueis book that one of the plot points about that is around Naboo joining the Republic. It was kind of a big deal, their defense and something like that. Whereas now the Naboo is like the birthplace of the Santecas, and now they're
Right.
like very, even though they're not, they're also Outer Rim or close to Outer Rim. They are
Mid rim, yeah.
very much a central, central planet of, and even central planet of wealth to the galaxy.
Yeah.
Very
They're like Des
interesting.
Moines, Iowa, like you're in Iowa, but it's the city in Iowa. You know what I mean? Shout out Des Moines. Yeah, so let's walk through some of these characters here. You got Kimir here. He seems like he'll be a potential avenue to some ancient secrets. Anytime I see how do they say it here? Possessing unusual things, and procuring unusual things and enjoying a life of leisure. Okay, so he's a pirate. That's probably what he's up to. Arms, not arms, but artifact dealer, maybe like a Dr. Aphra type. Also love this actor so much. Freaking the Good Place is a treasure. Um, this dude looks awesome. Yord kind of
Oh
seems
yeah.
like he's going to be a young Obi-Wan Kenobi type. Very, yeah, they say he's a overachiever and a rule follower. We've certainly seen that archetype
Hmm.
before in a bunch of Jedi. Uh, Stellan Gios from the High Republic comes to mind, right? Just like the stalwart, the perfect soldier. Michael, for whatever
It's
it's worth. I always
yeah.
thought of you when I read that book because he kind of looks like you because he's got the
Wait,
beard and
who?
everything
Wait,
too.
Stellan or
Stellan,
Elzar? Oh,
Stellan,
interesting.
the one who
Yeah,
the one
that's
who
fair. That's fair because he
heroically
has a beard.
sacrifices himself. Yeah, and
Yeah,
he has
and
the
has a
cross
really
guard lightsaber, and he's like,
his end is a
awesome.
really they for whatever the High Republic has done with storytelling. Man, the deaths that they have for the Jedi are pretty brutal and great at the same time. Like, man, they do a lot. But I was a little, before I knew the timeline, I saw this guy and was like, oh, that's Bell Zettifar older. That's so cool because he's
Yes.
got the hair is like totally the same as Bell's. But no, it's not. But I don't know. Maybe he could
Yeah, I
be.
was sad too. I
I don't
thought
know.
we were gonna get some more, especially with this character here. Well, not
Yeah,
Vernestra,
Vernestra
sorry,
Rowe.
but
Yeah,
we'll get back to Vernestra. I need to find this one here, Kelnaka. I was
I'm
really
sad
hoping
this is
this was.
not Buryaga. There's no
I
reason it
know.
couldn't be Buryaga.
It's
The
like, come
Wookiees live a pretty
on,
long
man.
time, and he's really young. Like, unless he dies a tragic death at some point that we haven't yet experienced,
I
um,
know.
better not
For
because
for the
that was no.
uninitiated and Taylor, Buryaga and
That,
Belzettifar are both characters from the High Republic, and they are
okay.
They're both
exquisite.
Padawans.
Buryaga, they're
They're both
they're
Padawans who
amazing.
lose
It's
their masters and more or less become sort of. It's very similar to like the Clone Wars situation where you have a lot of Padawans who have to step up. It's very
yep.
similar stuff is going on, and they do, and they're
Okay.
awesome.
Some seriously good literature out there. It's like reading Darth Bane kind of recalibrated me a little bit, but I will say that the High Republic, especially the adult books, when it's good, it definitely is the most Legends that canon has ever been, as far as like wide wide reaching stories, high stakes stories, because they're all characters that aren't in the movies and they can die. Very, very good stuff. But anyway, I've belabored that point. Um, Master Indara. This is the woman who is fighting Amandla Stenberg's character, if I'm not mistaken. Looks like the
She seems
same
super cool.
Jedi master. So yeah, so that'll be definitely interesting to see how good this May character is in combat against a Jedi master. I wonder if there is some kind of trailer magic workaround. Maybe they're sparring or who knows, but very intrigued to see how this all goes. I'm thinking this is a misdirect. I mean, they're kind of indicating that May is the dark sider, and I just don't. Maybe, but
Yeah,
I
I
don't.
agree. That's what I was saying. Is I think the trailer really heavily implies that she's the one using the Force, but it's possible she has maybe she's one of those sort of a tragic character who was a Jedi who left, and now she's trying to get revenge on this Sith acolyte who's pretending to be. And I think maybe some of the plot points have talked about that this is sort of like a traitor sheep in wolf's clothing kind of
Mhm.
situation, or wolf in sheep's clothing kind of situation, where there's a turncoat Jedi or somebody who's actually a Sith acolyte Which is where, again, I hope with the namesake, I hope they stick with that, and it's not an actual Sith, but this is somebody who is studying Sith legends and history and whatever, and sort of get sucked in. I always found those characters fascinating, the tools that the Sith use, and you could still have the Sith in the background being around and manipulating this person, but this person being sort of a venturous character who is a dark side user but is not considered a Sith.
Yeah,
Does
I don't
anybody
know.
it'd be
else?
interesting to see what they do. Sorry, go ahead, Taylor.
I was just gonna say, does anyone else feel like that poster could easily be for Kenobi?
Yeah.
or
Like the
anything,
same,
because yeah.
yeah, anything with the Jedi looks vaguely
Uh-huh.
And there's a
deserty.
lot of dirt and sand and
Kind of looks
you
like
know
Jeddah. I mean, not to belabor the point that all planets, like, there's a 60% chance it's going to be desert, but
yeah. Oof.
yeah, could be
I mean,
Jeddah.
Jedda's a
Be
pretty
interesting.
prominent planet in the High Republic era too.
Sure
And that's
enough.
another really interesting aspect. As much as that radio drama situation was not the best piece of literature that High Republic
Yeah,
has
I skipped that one.
produced, it's fine. It's interesting, but it's very interesting to hear about all the different Force users throughout the galaxy that are sort of like, hey, the Jedi don't have a monopoly on this. There are a lot of us out there. The Jedi are just one way and one group that use the Force, and it's not quite so the same as it is by the time we see them, where it's like, oh, you use the Force. Oh, well, we either need to kind of quash that or you got to join us. There's really only those two options.
And I kind of wonder if that's what we're going to see here, is that change, because you've got this character here, Mother Seiya, I think. Again, my eyes are failing me. The computer's a bit far away. Mother Aniseya, I believe, is a leader of a coven of witches who value their independence and the preservation of their beliefs and powers. So clearly not Night Sisters by the aesthetics. Um, and so I think with the implication that we might see Jeddah, you could start to see the Jedi kind of becoming dogmatic, maybe becoming a lot more I don't know what the word is, I guess legalistic of, or exclusionary, and that, like you were saying, Michael, like you have to either assimilate to us or go away, like there doesn't seem to be as much tolerance of other ways to view the Force by the time we get to the
Well,
prequels.
I think this is also a sort of a new canon consequence, because I feel like, especially playing games like Knights of the Old Republic, you got the sense that Coruscant Jedi were sort of different than the rest of the galaxy. Like, there are a lot of Jedi out there, and they have temples, and there are councils that exist on other planets and areas. Like the Jedi High Council on Coruscant was not all that the Jedi were, and that they were pretty spread out throughout the galaxy. Whereas now we sort of see, like, yeah, they go out from here, but the Jedi themselves are a fairly small group and yet well known for what they do, but they're very just tied to the Republic, and they're very sort of the secret police of the Republic at a certain point
Well, and there were a lot of
Yeah,
spin-offs too.
of the
spin-offs of the
Jedi.
Jedi
Spin-off groups, yeah. Like you
in
had your Gray
canon,
Jedi. I
or
feel like you had
Legends.
different. I don't know about canon, guys. Don't ask me about canon. Just assume what I'm talking about is Legends.
No, fair enough. I mean, because even in Legends, I mean, you had the Night Sisters. You had well, were they Night Sisters in Legends, or were they called the Witches of
Yes,
Dathomir? They were called Night Sisters. Okay, I
they were
couldn't
both.
remember. Okay,
It was both. Because
I
you
couldn't
had
remember.
the Witches of Dathomir that were the good Witches of Dathomir, arguably, and then the Night Sisters who were the bad Witches of Dathomir. But you had them. You had various like gray Jedi groups. What was the group
And in
that
one of
did
the new
flow
canon
walking?
books,
Oh yeah, the people that Jason talked to, I can't remember.
Yeah. Ang T?
Yep. Thank you. Yeah.
So
Yep.
like lots of different
there were
groups.
in the new canon books too, Ed. There's the book about Rey's parents, uh, Luke.
Shadow of the Sith, I
The,
think. Yeah.
yeah, so they talk about something that I assume happened in a comic book. I
What's
think we
up,
talked about.
Mixalite?
That's sort of the adventure that Luke had with this other group that were sort of Sith worshippers or dark side worshippers. and they had Sith artifacts that sort of led to the mask and all that kind of stuff. So like that, there are definitely Jedi and Sith adjacent groups out there. We just
Yeah,
haven't
the
heard
Acolytes of
of.
the Beyond, I think if you had
Oh
already
yeah, yeah, yeah,
said
yeah.
that.
That sounds
Yeah.
right.
They were the kind of Sith fan club that they were, that was working with the First Order in its infancy. Let's see if I got any other interesting screenshots here. There's this shot of what we assume is May meeting someone on. I presume that could be Octo. These look like the same shot, maybe.
It also kind of looks like the planet that they aligned the dagger on in Rise of Skywalker, where
Yeah,
Rey
the planet
and
Endor.
yeah, is that, I guess that's, I was like, I know
Yeah.
it's in the Endor
Never
system, but
forget. Remember the ancient Sith dagger that lined up with the Death Star ruins that crashed
it was a
when, like,
prophecy. The prophecy came true, Ed. It was a
yeah,
prophetic
yeah. It was
dagger.
they carved the dagger hundreds of years before the wreckage fell, and so it was. Yeah, that movie's dumb as shit.
I
Man.
just love
God.
the memes that are like, Rey holds up the dagger and she's like, this dagger has done terrible things. Meanwhile, holding the Youngling Slayer 9000 in her hand.
You could hear the screams. It's like, yeah, you
Yeah,
hear
you
the
think about it?
screams.
You hear the screams? That's coming from your lightsaber, friends, not the
Yeah,
dagger.
exactly. God. Yeah, that's that thing should be buried. Like, yeah,
Yeah, in
that's
the sand, probably, just for spite.
yeah, probably right by a hut, right? Like
Yeah,
that's a big deal.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Maybe you should
Oh,
change your
there's a
name
hut. I see what
afterward
you did
too.
there. Buried by the hut, Yeah, I see that. It's funny.
Yeah.
On program, guys.
We're on program. This is Star Wars.
This is
Come
Star
on.
Wars. It's related. Yeah, so look at all these guys. They had
They're
oh
already,
well
like, they said he's a loner, and he's like literally right there with a bunch of other Jedi. What's going on with this wiki? Make up your mind, dude. Looks like they're fighting the witches here in this scene too.
I have an issue because the internet, I said I wasn't going to talk about it, but here I am talking about it. The internet was like, there's no white dudes in this. Okay. And they were all mad about that. First of all, screw you, internet. We have enough. Second of all, you got Tom and Baratheon right there. I don't know what you're talking about. That's the king of the seven kingdoms. Okay. Ruler of men. First of his name. Head of House Baratheon, okay? He's a lightsaber wielder now. So maybe just cool it, all right? Thank you. I've solved a world peace on the internet. I'm a hero. Don't call me a hero. I'll do it for you. Okay, let's move on. I think that's about it as far as the screenshots about the Acolyte. I mean, there's basically, I am extremely excited for this show. I think we're going to get some from a production standpoint, I'm very excited because they said there's no use of the volume. We're seeing a lot of aliens. It's supposed to be a thriller. It's supposed to be, like the people who have worked on it seem to be fairly talented from their previous output. I didn't watch Russian Doll, but I heard good things. And I think she worked. Leslie Headland worked on The Americans, if I'm not mistaken. Either way, a lot of spy thriller sort of pedigree there, so that's exciting. It's a new vibe than what we've normally gotten. I hope the mystery is actually mysterious. I'm rewatching Prison Break right now with Lauren, and it's just amazing how suspenseful that show is the entire time. And I could do with a little bit of unpredictability in my Star Wars. That would be.
I don't know. You think the Star Wars fandom is going to be okay with unpredictability?
I don't care about the Star Wars fandom.
They didn't exactly receive Andor with the open arms it should have been received with. Like, I feel like a lot of people still had too much hate for a show that was, by all rights, perfect.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Well,
good.
honestly, when they say you can't please everyone, if the people who were not pleased by Andor, just don't worry about them. Can them from the focus group. Like, they can watch Resistance or Rise of Skywalker or whatever else they enjoy, because my God, that show's perfect. And
Well,
I
and
don't
to your
think
point,
this is going to be Andor. My expectations are not that high, but I hope it. It'd be
I
nice.
was gonna say, be careful there with your expectations.
Yeah.
that's fair. Hey, but to your point, the people who probably didn't like Andor as much were probably like under the age of, 20. So they were probably people who grew up more on episode 7, 8, 9 and Resistance and
And my brother.
maybe Rebels and your brother, but he didn't. Did he
Do
watch
you
more than 3
remember?
episodes?
Yeah, he said he watched till like episode 5, but I think he had just like decided to hate it by then. So
Yeah, once
it's
you get
kind
to
of
that
over.
point, man, you can't really do anything about it.
Yeah, no, you can't help some people, but it's funny. I think back all the time to when we got out of the theater for Rise of Skywalker. Again, I say this: if you genuinely like that movie, I love that for you. I don't want to take that from you, but this shit broke my heart, right? And so we're walking out of the theater,
This man was so
and
broken.
yeah, like Michael can remember. Like I'm walking out of the theater, I'm just destroyed, and this ostensibly human individual next to me, not Michael, this other person was like, "Oh, that was so great. They fixed everything that the first two messed up. That was so cool." When he like, "Oh man, the lightning, the freaking hyperspace, oh, it was so cool." I was just like, "Dude, I love you, man. I'm glad you had fun." And then I was
I
like,
think our
that's when I
first
said I don't want
after
to do
when
the
you
I didn't
started
want to do
saying
the show.
words, when you finally
I
started saying words and you were done just like spiraling, I think some of our conversation was more about like, wow, they really tried to address and fix every internet complaint about episode 7 and 8. Like every single one, they tried to address them, and that's all that movie was them really trying to address all of the internet's complaints, which is like total overcorrection, but whatever.
Hmm.
It happened.
yeah,
It's canon. It's until it's
it's
not
canon. It's canon, man. I'm telling you, hyperspace skipping's
canon
gonna show up in the
until
Acolyte. They're gonna learn the secret, that Poe found out. So awesome. Okay, let's get back. Let's get back. Reel it in, folks. Sorry, by folks I mean me. Sorry. I get worked up about this stuff. Gosh, I
No.
squandered a perfectly good early screening. Okay.
hey, it was
It's my
still an experience. All right, it was an experience.
It was. It was. Okay. Bad
Unforgettable.
Batch also came out this week. Bad Batch came out this week. Let's do that real quick. There wasn't I don't think there's a whole ton we have to say about it. The episode saw them working with Fennec Shand to try to understand what the Empire means by M count, what the Empire is doing with high M count individuals. Clearly, I think they gave too much information to Fennec, right? Let's dive into that episode. There was some cool stuff that happened, but it generally speaking was just kind of I thought it was just kind of move the plot along episode. I don't think there was anything too remarkable here. I think it's setting up some pretty cool stuff. But it kind of had to happen, right? It's one of those where you just kind of plug your nose and watch the episode. Wasn't too bad, but is what it is. I'm gonna start with whoever wants it. Raise your hand. Who wants to go first about this one?
I'll
All
go.
right,
I will.
Taylor,
I'll go.
you smiled
Oh,
first.
Oh.
Go
oh,
ahead. Oh, look at
Taylor's
us
got it. Taylor's
volunteering.
got it.
I call Taylor. Go.
I actually liked the episode. I don't know. It was filler, but at the same time, it didn't feel like I just had to sit through it, if that makes any sense.
Mhm.
I liked that they brought back Fennec Shand and sort of, I don't know, are addressing what happened in earlier episodes. I like that they are getting a little bit more mileage out of that.
Mhm.
They also, for Michael, I thought of how you were always talking about Hunter and how he loses his traits, and in this one they're like, "Yep, you're the tracker." So I was like,
He was so
um,
good at tracking too. I tell you what, man,
He's like,
he
if
could
you look
see
over there.
bubbles in.
Yeah,
He's
yeah,
like,
yeah.
look,
and
You
a
yep,
notice where
boat
there's
went
all
through
the muck.
he
here.
could
A
see
boat, it
things.
went that way.
He could see things. It was great. Yeah, I mean, not a lot of things made sense. There were many times where I was like, that wouldn't happen, but fine. Um, but no, I thought overall it was good. They definitely told her way too much. I mean, I guess it's not completely clear, but I assume at the end that she's betraying them because it sounds like she's going to send whoever give their information to whoever she was talking to.
Yeah, who do we think that she's talking to there? People have been
It's
speculating.
Cad Bane. It's Cad Bane. We saw him in the trailer. It's Cad Bane. Come on.
Who
We
else do we
literally
see in
saw
the
him in the
trailer?
trailer. It's
Who
not
else do we see?
Ventress.
Why
It's
wouldn't
not
it be?
Ventress. It
Ventress.
can't be No.
Would she be
It's
Okay.
working with
Cad
the
Bane.
Empire, though? I don't feel
Well,
like
she
she would
would be
be.
potentially hunting people with M counts, considering she has one herself, and she is a bounty hunter.
Yes.
Assuming. Okay, wait. I have a separate theory about Ventress.
He's like, wait, actually, it's Ventress. I'm sorry.
No. I have a separate theory about Ventress.
All right, go ahead, spit.
Probably very unlikely, too cool to be true. What if Necromancer, the first subject of Necromancer, is in fact Asajj Ventress? What if she's the person that they have brought back to life, that they've tried to sort of like, they're trying to bring her back. They've got her corpse because they can recover it for whatever reason they know. She's intact, and they're like, you know what if we just try to clone her and bring her back to life? And then they sort of encounter, I don't know, because then how does she get her yellow lightsabers and all that? And there's a lot of stuff going
But
on.
it doesn't seem like, I don't know, because Ventress looked pretty dang close to the real one. And meanwhile, this whole Project Necromancer, like in the
well,
sequel
so but
trilogy, it didn't seem like they had made too much progress.
But this
Like the
this is the
Right.
thing,
results
is
weren't good.
there's various things that are going on, because they're trying to do a strand cast, because I don't think they have Palpatine's full DNA to do like a whole clone. I think Palpatine in Rise of Skywalker is not a pure clone of Palpatine. He is a strand cast where they've tried to augment his midichlorian count and also give him additional bodies and things that he can sort of transfer into and take over the body. But a natural first step to that would be to try to successfully clone somebody with midichlorians, which is also sort of the plot of the Force Unleashed video games.
I was gonna
But
say
didn't
60% of Star Wars.
we
Well, yeah, I'm
decide
just saying
that
that was a thing.
didn't we decide that Snoke was one of the results of an attempt to clone Palpatine? Or am I
He would
misremembering that?
be a result of the attempt to strandcast clone,
So
but
like
like
this many years later, if that's the result, I don't see
science
how
moves
it
very
worked
slow in
this
Star Wars.
well this far in the past.
I don't know. I'm going for a crazy theory that doesn't have her just be alive.
I mean, watch
I
it
would love for
happen,
there to be
but
an actual explanation for how she comes back from the dead. So
Watch them
um,
use Michael's theory, and then Michael will point out why his theory doesn't make sense after they used it.
it's a stupid theory. I don't want it to be true, but then I also do. Yeah. Anyway, sorry. This
No,
is just to
I'm
say
just messing
somebody
with you,
other than.
man.
But I was like, of course it's got to be Cad Bane. We literally saw him in the trailer already.
I don't know, man. I it could be Cad Bane, but they were fighting each other, so it could
We're
be
fighting Fennec
Cad.
Shand
It
too.
could no. That's who Fennec Shand
No,
was fighting
Finnick
Cad
and
Bane.
Cat Bane.
Yeah,
I guess I don't know. It could be anybody. Maybe she's working with
I think it's
Quinlan
probably one
Voss.
of them too.
Maybe
I'm gonna be honest with you.
Quinlan Voss is out there. I don't know.
It's true. Could be Quinlan. All right, we've beat this horse damn near to death. So yeah, I'm intrigued by it. I liked the little name drop of the Haxian Brood from Fallen Order. That was pretty cool.
Mhm.
That old boy they were hunting was a killer of several of their henchmen or what have you. The giant praying mantis guy was fun. I liked him. Like that they had to
Dude
shoot him
was
4 times.
I mean, like, Wrecker can pick up an entire gunship in canon, but homeboy praying mantis guy is seemingly unkillable and can, kick him across a room. So like,
That dude
where
could
are the
Exoskeleton.
move.
mantis men? We need more mantis men in Star Wars. These guys are OP.
He was
Exactly.
limber.
Mantis Men
Mantis
in the
men's a
Acolyte.
Portal 2 reference if anybody's listening. It's fine.
I didn't get it.
I know. J.K. Simmons
Me
is
neither.
really funny. You should look it up. Mantis men.
J.K.
Uh,
Simmons was in Portal 2?
yes, he was in fact. Yes.
Wow. He really wasn't always famous, was he?
No.
Like I didn't realize how how meteoric his rise has been. That's interesting. Maybe that was unnecessary shade toward J.K. and it was a passion project. Either way, I don't know. I'm clearly ignorant on this. So,
Listen,
All
Don't
right.
diss Cave Johnson. He was fantastic, and that was a very popular game.
Oh yeah, I remember it being like a phenomenon at the time. I just
hmm
It's a pretty big
wasn't
deal.
allowed to play computer games.
So what do you guys think about Crosshair's issue with his hand?
Psychosomatic.
Yeah.
Psychosomatic. I know it's a kids show, but please use the
Yeah.
word. They're like, maybe it's in your head. Like, really? Can we not come up with a better word?
Which, to be fair, made it sound like the droid was potentially saying he was making it up when we all realize he's saying it's probably your experiences and your
Psychosomatic.
mental trauma manifesting
Right.
in a physical ailment.
Correct. Yeah.
But
I,
just the meditation at the end, I was like, okay.
I liked it. I thought it was cool. It's more
yeah,
credence to people
I'm
who
I mean, it was
interested to
think
cute.
see.
she has an M count and people think she's a Jedi, and that's why she's picking up all their abilities. So
I
more
did. I
credence
was like,
there.
oh, are they setting her up to?
Please no. Please.
Just an
Every
army of
character does
young
not need to
Jedi.
have the Force.
I know.
We
I
are all the Republic.
We are
we are all
all
Jedi.
Force users. Yeah.
we're
Yeah, no,
all on the same page
Speaking
on
of,
that too.
by the way, so the latest High Republic book, this is relevant, I swear. The latest High Republic book mentions the term force sensitive, which is something that I haven't heard in a long time. They're talking about how the Nameless specifically and only target force sensitives, which can still be explained. They have some sort of a threshold, and if you're over this threshold, whatever. But it's interesting because more recent canon has been sort of approaching as everybody's force sensitive. Some are just more force sensitive than others, but this was sort of a departure, or at least of that understanding that there are more back to at least old canon. I don't know that that was ever Lucas's idea, but at least old canon was much more like some people are force sensitive, period. Some people are not, period.
Which I still ascribe to the
Not to say that the
latter.
force doesn't still work through people, but like some people are sensitive to it and others are completely not. So
Just because they decided
yeah.
Satine needed to end up being force sensitive and they wanted to retcon things. I don't know. I don't think it makes sense.
Well, I also
I
think
don't
in
like
her
it.
case, I think by the end of the show, we've been pretty clear that she was in fact force sensitive because she was just mentally blocked. Like she clearly had the capability and the ability to use the force better than we've even really seen as use the force until just
Which
then.
I would prefer that explanation because she
Yeah.
went from
Well,
0 to 100 way too fast.
I mean, they Hera. I think I posted this at the time. I talked about that Hera was telling Kanan, like, dude, she's a Mandalorian, but you just got to work with it. Like, she's mentally blocked with these things, but you're also just kind of prejudiced. So you got to stop. It was a very
Which
interesting
I feel
interaction
like
from
then
Rebels.
contradicts the theory that everyone is force sensitive in some way. A mental block, I
Does it?
get.
I don't know
I
that
don't.
it does.
It doesn't have to,
That
but
was
it's like
it
you
felt
you're
like that was
training.
Kanan's sort of mentality, was that she can't be a Jedi because she's a Mandalorian, and Hera's like, I'm not a Jedi, but I don't think that's how this works.
It seemed like her training as a Mandalorian and the things she had been through as a Mandalorian had forced her to put herself, put up blocks and sort of isolate herself and kind of be
She's too
yes,
old to be
purely
in the training.
pragmatic. Yeah.
that I completely agree with, as opposed to
Mm-hmm.
anyone who works hard enough can become a Jedi.
Right.
But
Yeah,
but to that end, that sort of is the whole point of maybe the acolytes or things like that. But the whole idea behind Jedha is that, or even Chir Imwe and people like that, the Guardians of the Wills, is that there are people out there who are not force wielders. In fact, the High Republic has a whole thing on people who wield the Force. That's kind of an interesting ideology, is those who stand against that. But there are plenty of people who interact with, understand, interpret the Force who do not specifically they themselves use it. So I don't
Yeah,
know.
but just
It's an
because you
interesting.
utilize it differently
Force
than
will be
someone
free.
else doesn't, or from some other group doesn't mean that you are different. Yeah, okay.
path. No, I'm not silencing you. I'm saying the
I
path
think
of
it's
the
the
open
path of
hand.
the closed fist,
Oh.
actually.
The path of the closed fist. Man, what a obvious heel turn, right? It's like, we are the way of light. We are the path of darkness. It's like I just changed everything. Oh, it's great.
I just thought you were raising your hand on your own show.
No, I'm sorry. Yeah, no. If I'm gonna, that's what. Yeah, I will
The Back
never
to Space
silence you
Florida.
with the hand. I swear.
It
Yeah,
wouldn't work.
It was like Burt Reynolds in Gator. It was so great. You got to see the pod racer airboat. That was a lot of fun. I
I
did
love me
enjoy
some
that.
space gators, just literally
Yes.
punching space gators right out of the
Picking
air.
them up, throwing them down.
Yeah, that was cool. I'm curious as to why the mines in the river were really a problem when their ship hovers. I don't know why they
It would
couldn't
have
just
been
like
pressure. They said they were pressure
yeah,
sensitive,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
So
yeah. So like it's a swamp, right? So like,
Oh, you're
you
saying
know,
go around. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah, you're thinking too
like
much. Chill out.
if I put like a jet engine on a kayak, I don't really think that the land is gonna be much of a barrier there. It's just kind of, and their kayak was already floating, so I'm just
You got
It
saying.
did have
you
that
got
one piece in the back
trees,
that was usually in the water. Not the
you
engine,
got
but the
bush
little like fin
gators.
Just
thing.
I'm just saying,
Maybe that was the rudder.
problems
I
are
don't know.
problems.
It looked like the
Um,
rudder.
Yeah, I was like, I'm
you
about to
know.
use a technical term and I don't
Oh,
know if
what if
this is
it's
anywhere near
Maul?
right.
What if Fennec's working for Maul? I don't know.
All right, it's actually a pretty good thought. That's pretty
Because
cool.
Maul's a
Not
crime
gonna lie.
boss too.
He
He's out
is.
there.
Maul's
You're not wrong.
there. There's a lot
That
going
would be a
on.
pretty
That's
that
not
would
a
be a pretty
terrible
cool yeah,
theory.
I'm just saying. All
I
right,
mean,
you've
I'm
redeemed
still
yourself.
hopeful that
That's pretty
either in
cool.
this or Tales of the Jedi, we get to
That's pretty
see
cool.
Boba Fett and Cad Bane interact and have their whole shootout thing. That would still be cool. I'm still hoping for
Listen,
that.
man, I roll my eyes at a lot of things you say, but that one was a diamond. I'm like really hoping it's Maul now. That would be awesome. Can you imagine how outmatched the Bad Batch would be if Maul was there? That would be
Oh,
so
Can you
that'd
cool.
be so
imagine
cool.
Ventress v Maul or that sort of a team up?
Didn't we
That's a
didn't we
cool
get
thing
to
that
see
hasn't
that?
happened.
We saw that, right? A bunch. Wasn't Obi-Wan and Ventress fighting Maul and Savage in the Clone Wars? Yeah.
I'm pretty sure.
Did she
Yeah,
fight
that
Maul?
happened.
They fight Savage.
I thought it was 2
Speaking
on 2. So
Both of them.
Savage
It was
and
2-on-2.
really
yeah.
just brilliant naming
Season
right
4 of
there.
Clone
Savage.
Wars.
Right.
Season 4, episode 22, if anyone would like to know.
As if
Thanks,
Maul wasn't
Taylor.
on the nose enough.
I got you.
You remember
Put
that
another finger.
redneck Jedi? They were like, "That savage opress." That was great. I loved it. They did it in their own show. It was awesome. Oh, goodness gracious. Yeah, I think that's a good place to leave it. I don't know that there's a whole heck of a lot more we need to say. I worked in the
Can we
Archer
do
impression and we got
can we
we
do
got
the
everything we need out of
thumbnail
this.
for this episode? Can it be a milk carton and on the milk carton is Hunter's superpowers?
That's what you get.
That's
You get
What
what you
happened to
get.
I want to know what happened to Hunter's EM sensing superpowers because they have quietly, like, once again, like this is 3
Yep.
weeks in a row, I've complained about the fact that like, oh yeah, he's a hunter. He hunts
Downgraded to
things. He's a
tracker.
tracker. But like he used to like, aren't they all? Don't they all do that? In fact, I actually think that Wrecker was more useful this episode for various purposes than Hunter.
I
I don't
actually
even know.
agree with
Like
that.
Hunter could have been any clone at this point. Not even just like I think Andy mentioned too that he seems to be lacking character, or maybe somebody else said that
Yeah.
last week that like
No, that was Andy.
he's
Yeah.
just
That was
kind of a
Andy.
nothing at this point. I feel like I don't know.
Yeah, he
Maybe
and
Well, okay.
I mean,
Crosshair.
it's difficult to write a cast of clones to all have unique, interesting personalities that are still the same person and different, but like I don't know.
He and
20 minutes.
Crosshair have been kind of fighting over the same banner, I feel like, and so that will probably
Yeah,
come to a head if it hasn't
they're the
already.
same father
But,
figure lane.
correct. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see.
To be fair, Hunter did say, like, there's mines and there's alligators. So, like, he did something.
Yeah, he saw them, but I mean, I don't know. Also cool that their
Just saying,
clone
he did
armor
something.
is like completely air filtering and they can breathe underwater with
Yeah,
them. That's
that
kind
was
of
interesting to me.
I mean limited
Very
time. I don't know.
Republic
There was always
Commando.
some yeah, I mean
Yeah,
he's
but
wearing
that's
basically
Republic
Katarn
Commando.
armor, but like Wrecker's not. But I don't know. I think clone armor more than stormtrooper armor has always had some levels of like
Mhm.
air supply that they could survive in space briefly and things like that. But
Mhm.
this definitely seemed to
To
go
be
beyond that.
completely,
They were like, yeah, the air is
like,
literally
sealed.
toxic. Keep your helmet on.
Right,
Mhm.
right. Yeah.
It's like,
No,
"'Kay."
I hope to see the return of hunters hunting as well. I'm with you guys, but
Don't hunt.
all, all in all, it was fun. I'm super excited for the Acolyte. That's what's really getting me going. It's always a treat to hang out with you guys. Excited to see you all next week on program. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for stopping by. We appreciate you. It was a lot of fun. Let us know what you're most excited for. Is it the Acolyte or next week's episode of the Bad Batch? That's a real question that I want real answers for, okay? If you actually answer it, I'll respond. I really do appreciate it. Hey, have a great week. You deserve it.